Okay, and welcome to the May edition of the monthly Community Hangout for Open edX. We are live, coming at you from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we've got a bit of an agenda today. But first, I just want to say hi, hello, and good to see everybody again. Are there any items that people want to bring up before I jump into the agenda? Going once, going twice. Okay. So we're in a room. There are two people sitting opposite me who can't see unless they log in. But if they have anything to add, they can always. I didn't mean for you to get up and like. Sure. Anyway, with that out of the way, we will proceed in due order. All right. So I wanted to kick off things with a bit of a discussion around kind of what we do with support and feedback, mostly because, well, a couple things. One is as we try to push a learning practitioner community, it strikes me that one of the things that we could really add as a community is kind of feedback on, the users of the Open edX platform and how you report feedback, how you report errors and bugs, and how we manage that process. And it strikes me that we don't really have a systematic way of doing this, and that's kind of a gap that we need to figure out and fill. So other than saying that this is something we need to do, are there any thoughts around whether it's using like the GitHub issues, using Jira? As a company, we tend to use Jira, but I'm open to suggestions. I don't necessarily like Jira, but it's what we have and it's what we use. Are there any strong opinions about what kind of tooling we use, or thoughts around what are some best practices around support processes that you've seen in other communities? And I'll just stop there and see if there's any, if anyone wants to discuss that. All right, so go ahead, yes.
Yeah, so I don't have any strong opinion about tooling, but I guess you won't find many big fans of Jira.
I have never seen a fan of Jira. I see lots of users of Jira, but it's usually something they have to use, not something they like to use.
Yeah.
Which is probably why they bought Fellow. But anyway, go ahead.
So collecting community feedback, it's difficult. I'm doing it at my own scale, which is very small, and it's really difficult to have always professional feedback, consistently good. People dump their thoughts in GitHub issues, so it's bound not to be a perfect solution, I guess.
Right, and I'm not looking for perfect. I'm just looking for something that mostly works. Are there things that we've tried in this community before I came along that you thought were good and we should have continued with respect to feedback gathering and support? Okay. Part of that, I think, means going through our Slack channels and seeing which ones are the best in terms of ongoing maintenance and support, and which ones are mostly listened to. We have a lot of Slack channels, and I feel that it's a bit of a sprawl right now, and I'm not sure that it's set up best for a responsive community. And I'm not sure what to do about that except to nominate the top 5 or 10 channels we should definitely keep, and then mark a bunch for potential archiving. But I'd love to hear, other people chime in on this subject.
Would it make sense to at least have a centralized asking for help channel, and then just keep an eye on that one, especially for being able to be responsive?
Yeah, and I think for that purpose, a lot of people have used like general and ops. And I think one of the problems is that people come and ask for help. They'll go to general and someone say, well, you should go to channel X. And then they'll go to channel X, which only has like, a few active people. So I think if we had a general help channel, that would be good. I guess the question is that what general should be for, or should we really have a specific support channel?
The thing is with, from the moment you create a centralized place where people can ask for help,
yeah,
you need to make sure that people will actually contribute help. And
right, that people actually monitor it. Yes.
Yeah, people will actually answer. And so I'm not sure the chat format is best for that. I don't know.
I think that is a valid point, and I'm wondering if we should take another look at our mailing lists and potentially replacing them with something like Discourse or something like that. And I've long had that on my list of things I'd like to do. But in the meantime, we have the mailing list, and I guess the question is, do people actually use them? I mean, I see people.
I was off of the edX Slack for a long time. I was sort of on it at the beginning when I first found out about it. This is Rowan, by the way. And then I kind of closed that tab in my browser because my company didn't use Slack yet. Now it does, which is why I'm back. And I just found I had this tab open in my browser that was constantly popping up notifications that had nothing to do with me. And so I didn't find Slack a very sort of conducive way to just kind of keeping an eye on things and maybe giving the occasional like comment or question. And I think it's a fairly high friction way to try and get community involvement. You have to sign up for an account at Slack, and you have to learn how to use Slack, and you have to figure out what all the different channels are. And then, you have to sort of stay on there 24/7 and look out for messages coming by. And I mean, I like it for, my Cloudera uses it now, and it's great for inter-team communication, but I'm not sure it's great for the sort of more sporadic community thing. So something like an asynchronous forum or something, I think that might be a better choice, and something that's as low friction as possible.
Yeah. Does everyone here use the mailing list, the Google Groups?
Yeah, the mailing list is good.
Okay, good. Okay.
I still prefer a Discourse forum, but
I do too. It's going to take us a bit longer to do a version of that than I wanted, but that is the longer term plan.
I'm not sure I'm aware of which Google group you mean.
Oh, there's like 5 of them. There's hang on a second. Let me pull one up so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see. I thought I had them somewhere. Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, careful you don't open the wrong tab there.
Exactly. I wanted to. We have like a general questions Google group. It's what is it? It's edX-code. There's an announcement channel, which is hardly ever used. There's an ops channel, which is OpenEdX- ops. There's an analytics channel, OpenEdX-analytics. The operators and general channel get used by far the most. So I would be, I think the question here was, how can we add a process around our mailing list such that we make sure that people get, the response they're looking for in a timely manner, right? So.
And well, I think that also points to another piece of this, which is just promoting awareness of these channels.
Right.
I've been with edX for a long time.
I was going to say, like, you've been around for a while, so I'm kind of surprised that you didn't know about it, and that tells me that we need to up our game as far as sending out notifications of what's currently available.
Yeah, to point people at the Slack, I always end up having to look up the original blog post announcing the Slack in order to get the registration URL.
That's exactly right. Yes. Yes. I find that as well. So, okay. All right. Well, I think the first thing to do here is to revamp the communications around our wonderful mailing list groups, especially since they already exist and are used by a lot of people. And the second thing is to put together a plan where we could actually create a discourse or other web-based platform that could be used for that purpose. So Marco looks like he wants to say something.
Yeah, I think so. I'm relying on audio on your machine.
That's
so
fine.
Yeah,
okay.
But one thing I wanted to raise, just in case it sparks other thoughts in other people's sort of minds, is as the conversation was going on earlier, one thing I looked into is there are a bunch of applications and things you can extend into Slack that try and sort of support the Q&A aspect of Slack and sort of knowledge hub creation. So I found one, Niles, NILES.ai. I reached out to them to ask about whether they have nonprofit or open source pricing, but I'm sure there are other examples.
Yeah.
I forget how to in Zoom. I'll just post this in the chat room for the group. But anyways, I know nothing about that product other than the fact that it was one of the first ones that came up that seemed close to viable, but there's likely other things that people would think about based on that sort of prompt. So I just thought I would say that. And it's by no means sort of a jump to the email lists or back or to Discourse or another tool. But for the current use of Slack channels, the thought would be that something like this could actually make it more likely that you get a quick answer, especially if someone has answered it before.
Good point. Thank you. Okay.
Marco, does Niles make Q&A searchable on the web? Like, can you Google answers?
Yeah, that's
a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think you can, as a Slack bot, you can like @ Niles and ask it a question, but I don't know that it's like fully indexed by Google and as like searchable as the sort of mailing lists are.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like a solution more in the Slack space than in the other space. But the point is just like whether it's exactly this or this just sparks some other options or things that people can look at. There maybe is like the other thing that has come up of late in the last week that you just made me remember is GoLinks. If people are familiar with that company or service, GoLinks is another example. I'll paste the link for that as well.
Okay.
GoLinks. A bunch of big tech companies use it as a way to say like you'd go /Slack and it would go to the like Slack install link or whatever.
Oh.
I don't know how it works in the public context.
Okay.
As opposed to like an internal corporate context. So it may not work at all for what you're describing. Anyways.
Okay.
Anything that people can look at that.
Great, thank you. And the reason this is taking on a renewed emphasis is because, as we sort of broaden the community to incorporate more learning practitioners who may have a more non-technical background, we need to think very carefully about how we lay this out so that our community is self-selecting and they know where to go, and that it's not their first interface is not so intimidating that way they leave and never come back. So we need to think very carefully about how we plot that out. So that's all I'll say there. And let me make sure. Yes. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts about support process before we move along? All right. So for the next piece, is that supposed to be prop board or prod board? Daniel, are you here?
I think it's prod board.
Prod. Okay.
Or I forget. Whatever.
Okay. I mean, I guess
both exist actually. So.
Oh, good to know. I guess the main thing about the prod board is that there is a something we're trying out with one of the one of the ecosystem partners around doing some product planning and road mapping, and it's a prototype, and there are thoughts around how we could turn that from a prototype with a single company to something that we share with everyone and create a more programmatic way of developing roadmaps and addressing requested features on a roadmap, which, as everyone here knows, we don't really do. So it would be great to come up with a process around addressing feature requests and requirements gathering and all the good stuff that goes into any kind of product management process. So with that said, working groups. Before I dive into updates from specific working groups, I wanted to introduce Olga, who is joining us today. You may have seen her pop up from time to time on the various places on Slack. But in my call to gather sort of a set of stakeholders around a learning practitioner community of practice, Olga has raised her hand and is interested in helping out. I thought she could take a minute to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, many of you might already know me either from my analytics work in the open source community or just my general presence here at edX. I've been with edX for 6 or 7 years from our very first location. I worked cross-functionally across a lot of different teams. I am very passionate about education. I think that edX, Open edX, the Open edX community and open source helps us move the education mission and vision forward. And I'm so happy to get the chance to work with all of you. I'm gonna look to John, Mark, and Marco to lead this effort, and let me know if I should talk more than I just did.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, I'll wait until you talk
Okay.
about the use. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So in general, as we look to create this learning practitioner community of practice, we're soliciting feedback and ideas around how best to do that. So if you have your favorite instructional designers or educators or researchers in the space who would be interested in participating, direct them to me or Olga or Marco, and we'll be happy to get that rolling. I added a spot on the I added a line item on the working group page so that we can start to gather interest. So if you want to take a look at the working group page, we can actually let me just add that to the chat so you can see the URL. All right. Yeah. Hang on.
Should I talk a little bit about this working group, or should I wait? Are we going through everyone else first?
Sure. Feel free to add whatever you want to. Whatever you want to say.
Quick note about why we're doing this and what some of the goals could be here. We're trying to gather the open source community around instructional design in general. There are hundreds, thousands of open source installations that on a day-by-day basis present educational content to thousands, millions of learners around the world. I'm wondering if we could, as a community, come together and gather and share best practices around not just the open source and the code that we day-to-day do, but also the education, pedagogy, and instructional design best practices. To that end, we will help ourselves and each other spread the mission forward, and I am really excited to see what this open source community can do to that end. If you're an instructional designer, if you're an educator, or if you're interested in participating in that, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Olga. All right. So any questions about that or working groups in general before we move ahead? All right. Is John Baldwin here to talk about analytics? No? Do you know what's going on in the analytics working group?
I can talk. I hesitate to talk for him, but I can advertise it.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I just want to see if there's an update.
Yeah. I think he's currently on his way back from PyCon.
Oh,
Right.
I forgot he was at PyCon. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Governance, look for the first gathering for governance this month. I know many of you are eagerly anticipating that. So Ned, do you want to say anything about API docs? You still there, Ned?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. So my technical work in the next quarter or so is going to be getting our API docs back online in a good way. I'm not sure how to spread that work out, but if people are interested in helping, I would love to have the help.
Yes, and we would all like help on the docs in general, but API docs specifically. It's been a gap for a while, and we as we build a larger community, we definitely need to move forward in that front soon. There were some technical issues around that. I'm not sure they've been entirely resolved, but if any of you are familiar with documentation in Python Django apps, it would be most appreciated. Okay, so now we have, I'm going to pause here for a moment if you have anything to mention about working groups or anything else in particular before I move on in the, wait, you have something?
Oh, for the analytics one, John has a huge wiki that is very informative. So.
Oh yeah, no, I linked to that.
Okay. And people can check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the analytics working group is definitely ahead of the curve as far as getting their landing page up and running and having information there. So I'm posting that in the chat in case anybody wants to check it out. Okay, so what's new in development? I don't know if Nimisha's here. She may not be, but Ned is here. Is there anything you want to say about the Ball of Mud initiative, or is that still too early in the process?
Well, so I could say a little bit about it. So a few of us have banded together to try to address some of the issues that arise from having edX platform as a large monolithic repo. Some things have been sliced off of it. We're trying to bring some order, at least document what order there is within there, move some pieces around. The API docs work is part of that. It's not a formalized effort quite yet. edX works on fiscal years from July to July, and we expect at the beginning of July to have a crisper statement about what that work is going to be. But for now, if you look at the pull requests, you might see some things happening around documenting the insides of edX platform or moving some bits of it around.
Cool. All right, any questions?
But you should expect to hear more about that from the architecture team.
Yes, and reminding me to mention that the next architecture hangout is the 21st of this month, so less than 2 weeks away. So if you want to hear more about what's going on with that initiative, definitely come to the architecture hangout. All right, which by the way is on our new handy dandy community calendar, so you'll find it listed there. Okay, next is Jeremy with an INCR update, and Jeremy has had his hands full this week running a sprint at PyCon. So Jeremy, why don't you? Oh yes, there's your badge. Thank you. Take it away, Jeremy.
Yeah, so this is the last day of the PyCon developer sprints, which for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's 4 days of development on open source projects that happens after the main North America PyCon conference. And I've been here sprinting on OpenEdX for the last 4 days, working on tickets from the Incremental Improvements project, specifically the tickets we have for trying to get edX platform upgraded to run under Python 3, preferably in time before the Juniper release, so people have time to upgrade before Python 2.7 stops getting support on January 1st. Since the sprint started, we have merged 54 tickets, most of which are running automated tools across different parts of the code to get them updated to work with both Python 2 and 3, fixing some little problems that come up as a result of that. There's about another 25 tickets currently in review, and there are still 2 or 3 people here, besides myself, working on this and we've got another few hours before things wrap up.
Cool. Thank you, Jeremy. Is there anything else that you want to mention that's taking place at the sprints?
Well, so one thing is we've had I think it's about 25 people sign up for contributor agreements. This is their first time contributing to Open edX. Some of them didn't even know Open edX existed until a couple of days ago. Other ones had used sites built on Open edX but hadn't realized that it was built on an open source platform. And some people have come in very skeptical that they could actually do anything to contribute because they're relatively new to, for some of them, this is the first time ever contributing on an open source project. But we've been working on refining this process for the last several months, and most of them have successfully gotten in pull requests within a couple of hours. Some of them haven't been able to set up DevStack, but we've had alternative paths getting it set up with just a lightweight virtual env development environment to do the kinds of tickets that we've set up as starter tickets. And they're still learning how we do development, about the project, how to submit a pull request, what the review process is. And those are trying to limit to just the core things you need to do make any contribution. And some of them have gone on to taking on more challenging things after that. Great.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for putting that on and for leading this project in general. Any questions or additions to that? All right, and now we come to the final piece on the agenda, which is demos. If there's anything that you want to show and tell, now is the time to do it. Otherwise, we'll bring this to a close. Anything, any demos people want to show? All right, so the next one that we host will be next month. Will be actually. It will be June something. So second Thursday in June, whatever that is. If you want to run a demo, if you want to show something off that you've done or started, feel free to add it to the agenda when we post it. And otherwise, look for the recording of this one to be posted soon. Unless there's anything that people want to discuss, I guess we'll bring it to a close and we'll pick it up next time. Anything else? Going once, going twice. All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.